Experiencing freedom, discover your destiny and make an eternal difference. Now.
Well, what is up, you guys? I know that you're probably very confused right now because you're like,
we're out of the seating order. Something is not right.
This is not who I pay to see every week. And I'm going to be honest, I don't even know if we're on Facebook right now. We found out last night that Ted left his sweatshirt in Canada.
Okay.
So Alex went on a recon mission with Ted to get it, and one of them didn't have the CAN app. So they are in a 24-hour holding facility in Canada. Alex said that his no sugar thing is not working out real well as they're force feeding him maple syrup.
Okay.
But, you know, he'll be all right.
I like mine intravenously.
Yeah.
It's good.
Just like straight in the vein.
Straight in there.
Straight in the vein.
Yep. I had homemade waffles this morning with my grandson and the homemade Canadian maple syrup. And then my grandson's a dipper. So he doesn't like to pour them on because then, you know, you get some squares without.
Yes.
Right. So he likes to dip it and then he overfills it. And then I am the cleanup man. I come in and chug the rest of the maple syrup left in the dipper. Wow. So I'm gloriously happy this morning. I've had an extra big giant mouthful of maple syrup.
Yay.
Gary is hopped up. Yeah. When he found out that it was up to him to carry the team this morning, I was like, well, this is not good. First, it was just going to be me, PG, and Ted, and then all of a sudden, no Ted.
Right.
So I drug my mother.
He used his one phone call for an international call to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said,
that's dedication and commitment, I'll tell you.
I need you to carry the team on this one. Grasshopper or whatever.
Young grasshopper.
Yeah. Does anybody know if we're recording? Stop streaming. Stop recording. I'm assuming that means that we're streaming.
I'm going to assume that too. That's good.
I don't know. I put it in the SD card. That's all that matters.
Okay.
But, yeah. So, do you ever wonder why you take the time to listen each week, guys? Well, MORE stands for maximizing opportunities for right now and eternity. So, stop asking why you listen and just never forget to listen and pass it on.
Absolutely.
I don't really know what to expect today. Typically, I've already told 3 stories I'm not supposed to, but my mother is sitting to my left. So,
ouch.
Ouch.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think we're going to do great. You know, we always just talk about the Lord and everything is good.
Yeah.
Just add a little bit of fun in there and we are going to be golden. It's going to be good. It's probably one of the most viewed podcasts ever.
There we go.
Ever.
Okay.
Viewed podcasts.
Did I heard that you launched your YouTube channel the other day.
Who did you hear that from?
It was the big talk of the staff meeting. Lisa Kay got her grandson Lincoln was just like, you've got to do this. You got to do this. And so she posted a pea-size hail hitting her new tomato plants, and she got 650 views overnight on that. So she's the new, phenom on YouTube. So.
Wow. So first it's Jason Mesner.
Yep.
And then it's me, and now it's Lisa Kay.
Yeah. She has 2 videos up, apparently.
Lisa Kay did? Dang, yeah. I need to go follow her. That's awesome.
Her grandson was the one, he was just like, his thumb was going so fast, she's like, oh.
That's funny. So she just had like a video of hail hitting the tomato plants.
She only did it because Lincoln's like, you've got to do this. She doesn't really want to do it.
Now I want to see the video of, honestly, I would watch Lisa Kay talk about almost anything. Because she's like the grown-up version of what I want to be when I grow up.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah. I think it's, what is it? # Mimi's gardening 123 or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I could look it up.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I was, I don't know if you guys have seen, I'm going to plug Jason's podcast, not his podcast, his YouTube channel real quick. The Veteran Angler on YouTube. I don't fish, but I started watching it just because I wanted to be supportive, and in like a super lame way, it's brought me to tears a couple of times. Okay. Because he'll tell stories and just be like, man, I just give all glory to God for the fish that I'm catching. And he was telling a story after another one of his bass fishing wins that he said that they used to joke about there was a family curse that nobody would be able to catch fish. And he was like, and God broke that curse with me. And he's like, I used to be a terrible fisherman, and now I'm out here winning bass tournaments. And it was just like Jason just being himself.
Yeah, he's amazing.
There's something about opportunities for people to just get onto a platform and be themselves that I think is just one of the coolest ways to express.
Well, he's a great guy anyway.
He is.
So I have made a request that he move the camera to the front of the boat instead of the back of the boat, because looking at his backside is not that exciting.
Well, I guess the fishing angle is different, but did you catch some of those sunset views from that back angle?
Yeah, that was great.
Crazy.
So Lisa Kay's YouTube channel is at Mimi's Gardening 123. Okay, so that's what I've been told.
I will follow her. So who watched my video? Did anybody?
I'm not sure anybody commented on the video, but they just said you were doing that.
Okay, yeah, that's cool, because I'm like, we may need to have a prior discussion.
Oh, wait a minute, I take that back. It was something about you sharing your testimony. I think that's what it was. Okay.
I've known for years that I needed to share my testimony, but I was kind of walking through the bulk of it still. And when I got on the other side of it, probably about a month and a half ago, I started asking God. I was like, I've always felt like I want to do social media full time. Like, it's always been a desire of mine to have a podcast, have a YouTube. But every channel that I've always started, I felt like I didn't have the full vision for it.
Okay.
So it's like you can kind of tell when the idea is right, but the timing is off, when things just kind of keep falling and falling. Well, then all of a sudden, I felt the desire again, and then I had the picture, and the first thing I heard was like, you need to honestly share your testimony. And I recorded that video like 14 times.
Wow.
Because my testimony is a little intense. God's gotten me through a lot. But the way that he ended up having me tell it was, I feel like, was very honoring to what God did and not glorifying to what I've been through, which I think is super important.
So what is the gist of the YouTube channel then? What's it going to be?
Yeah, so it's called The Whole Journey. And one of the things that I've learned in the last 10 years of walking out this wholeness with God is, there are ways that we've not only misunderstood God's character, but also like things that he wants us to be able to learn to equip us to be able to walk out wholeness, because there's salvation, and then there's everything that happens after salvation.
Right.
So there's an opportunity, like you say, for sanctification and discipleship after that will not only transform you in like heart areas, but also how you live your life. And as somebody who did not know that freedom in Jesus could look like full and total complete freedom, even in my lifestyle, I want other people to know God is fully capable of transforming you. Like in every area that you think, everybody in my family has struggled with this for 3 generations. Like, but God, that's the whole thing. So it's not just salvation, it's the whole journey. So that's why it's called The Whole Journey.
So I just had this thought, just give it some prayer.
Okay.
I would consider hosting this channel and having people come in and share their full testimony. And
that's what I told
that would
Alex.
be a great thing. Okay.
Yep. I've told him, because actually Alex and I were going to start a podcast last summer. And it was interesting because I felt the synergy when we were talking about it, but then I felt in my spirit that something just wasn't quite right. And I went and I prayed about it, and I just took it before God, and I said, hey, why do I feel so much passion about this, but I still like don't feel like I'm like, Alex is ready to go. Like, let's do this. I told him, I was like, I want to have a podcast that the whole point is talking with people about their testimonies and sharing. Because, like, it's you overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of testimonies. Like, you have to hear other people's testimony to understand that you're able to move forward.
Right.
And then it just kind of fell. And Alex was like, are we good? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I just feel this hesitancy that now is not the time. And so we, put a pause on it. But it's interesting when you give something to God and if you wonder, like, am I laying this down forever? Like, was I wrong? And you give it to God and then he gives it back to you. That's
a great thing.
An amazing thing.
So Tamara, sitting across the way, if you could have your own YouTube channel, what would you talk about? What would you experience?
Go ahead.
It would probably be about the same, honestly, because I've had a really long walk and just recently it's shifted and just, I think inside of me is so many lessons that I've learned that I think it's so important to share, because God puts us all on the earth and we walk stuff out. But you don't want to have to walk out every single topic yourself. So you learn from each other.
Sure.
Right.
That's
so
wisdom.
if I can save someone from having to walk my walk out, or to have some idea of how to walk it out. Who do I go to for help? How do I handle this situation? I feel so guilty for doing this, or, whatever. to have someone saying, I've walked that one out. Let me give you a little bit of advice. Take that before God and see if that applies to you.
Great.
Because it might not.
Great.
But to share and see what the Lord says.
Yeah.
And just to put that out there.
Yeah.
You know?
That's super.
Yeah.
The profound thing is that how both of us even got on this journey, it was literally just the two of us walking it out.
Yeah.
And so hers started like 15, 16 years ago, and mine started 11, 12 years ago. But I still walked out a lot of really hard things. It's like when the enemy caught wind of me attempting to make an effort to get out of things, he just came at me with everything he had, which is biblical. Like I should have expected it. But she was the only one that, sat down in it with me, because she was walking her own part and I was walking my own part. And I'm like, hey, God's bringing up this stuff and I don't know how to handle it. So we read books, we watched sermons, we were in the Bible, we were getting prayer, and it was just like 12 years for me, 10 years, and then 15 years, 17 years of just trial and error. Just straight up trial and error. But the fruit of it years later is the part that, it just still gets me. I didn't ever think I'd be here.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
lights me up.
Awesome.
But anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and get to our ID break. Then we're going to have our sponsor.
Sure.
And then I'll officially introduce who's on the podcast this week.
Sounds great.
All right.
This is More Podcast. We'll be right back.
Well, this episode is sponsored by the Maha Meme Magnet. If you couldn't catch it already, I've taken over the podcast for the day. This is the Crunchy Christian Takeover.
Okay.
Do you catch yourself going to the fridge late at night for a sugar-filled, artificially everything-infused snack you'll regret later? Not when you're met with the Maha Meme Magnet. This intentional and convicting magnet features the smolder of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. himself with the bold caption, "Don't eat that."
Wow.
This product has been proven to reduce late-night snacking by 50% in people who don't rip it down the first time they get guilt-tripped about their snacking habits. Do you need this? I sure do. Now only $11.40 on Etsy.
Does it come with an optional latch and lock?
I think that it probably needs to, because I can tell you right now, 2 people in my household would rip that thing off so fast. But if you're like me, you know that you have a list of 3 things that are not included in willpower.
Okay.
One of them is Pastor Matt's Oreo fluff. If that's in the house, it's a goner, right?
Okay.
Banana pudding cannot be in the house. And recently found out key lime pie ice cream from Kilwins.
Ooh.
I crushed a quart of it in like 7 days.
Wow.
A quart of it. So no willpower applies to those things. But RFK Jr. may be helpful in these areas. So
That's good.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep. All right.
All right. You can pick that up on Etsy for $11.40. Is that correct?
And I'm sure they've got it on Amazon too. I mean, who wouldn't want to look at Robert F. Kennedy?
Sure.
He's, you know.
Okay. Great.
Wow.
Gary's like, I'm not going to comment on that.
Staying out of that one.
It's not necessarily attractive to me, but that's okay.
Okay, Gary. All right. So who is on the podcast this week? Well, the wild card guest of the week, who got all of 1 hour notice that she would be here. It's my mom. Woohoo! She is a loyal listener of the podcast when I hold her hostage on long car rides, and the only one who owns more essential oils than I do. It's Tamara. Whoop, whoop. And on the other side of me, the only guy who can stay quiet for most of the podcast and still manage to owe his wife $20 for oversharing, it's Pastor Gary. When he tells a story or preaches, it's sure to be unforgettable, even if it costs him his lunch money.
That's great. And the lady who's sitting across from us today, she now has the mantle of the buttons and the knobs. All right. So she's the only lady that could threaten Pastor Alex with a bottle of patchouli oil, which, going back to your crunchy comment there, she is Rebecca Moore. She may sound and look sweet like a Southern belle, but she is feisty enough to debate a vegan on the biblical importance of eating enough protein because animals are on the menu.
They are.
We have Rebecca Moore.
Yeah, we had a couple of other options. The one for Ted that we wrote was awesome, but I guess you guys will have to come back next week.
Save it. It was definitely worth putting away in the archive.
You'll have to come back next week for that one. Well, we're about to head into Bible trivia. PG, you got the question of the week?
Yes.
All right, well, let's do a little ID break and come back with Bible trivia.
Volveré enseguida. Más Podcast es el lugar para escuchar sobre todas las cosas buenas de la Biblia sin todas las calorías.
All right, as you guys know, when we ask these questions, where do you send them? You send them to harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com, harborlightbibletrivia@gmail.com.
Wow, just
no
as fast as Alex
capitalizations
there. That's good.
No spaces. Send in your answers, and here is the question of the day.
Okay, so the question that we have for you this week is David was in charge of restoring a special article from the temple known as the Ark, but it has another descriptor connected to it. So it's the Ark of something. I need you to give me what that something is. Should be easy for you to figure out. And so it's kind of an easy one for this week, but very important. And then I'm going to throw in a bonus. Second half, you have a New Testament and an Old Testament. What is another word for testament? Okay, there we go. So we got two parts there. Ark of the blank and the new blank and the old blank in the Bible.
All right.
There you go.
All right, you heard it from the man himself, right out of the horse's mouth.
There you go.
This question plus bonus question of the day. And guys, you have no reason not to be on the Wheel of Destiny. Okay,
I was able to give Dave his prize from last month.
What do you think of the hot sauce?
He did not get the hot sauce. That one went to my grandson. My grandson got the hot sauce.
All right.
By the time I got home, he had swiped it. But Dave got the Corktown certificate.
Yeah.
So he was pretty excited. He didn't even know he was on the wheel.
Oh, well, there you go. And if anybody was curious, Pastor Alex's book, his book launched on June 3rd officially on Amazon. And the cool thing is that I'm his unofficial underpaid publicist. Okay, so it's my job to tell you guys. And Alex is not here, so he won't talk about himself, but I will. So please make sure to go write a review, read the book, all that kind of stuff. And
any reviews so far?
I wrote a review.
Did you?
Yeah.
Good?
It's good.
Great.
Yeah. It's I'm not a parent yet, but I could see the benefit of, somebody that walked that out with so many parents. I have said this before. I was never a true prodigal, but I have all the trauma of being a prodigal, making decisions I shouldn't have been making. But the cool thing is that God was just as good of a father as my parents were. Like I was really, it was a blessing to have parents that just kept praying, I'm
really glad that you brought it up because God is a perfect parent. And he had a perfect place, and they had his perfect presence, and they still walked away. So that's hope for all of us parents who have had our children not follow the Lord all the way when we wanted them to. To remember that even the perfect parent had troubled kids.
And the humanness of us just sometimes it takes some time to walk out. Yep.
Absolutely.
You got any comments on that?
Yeah, actually I do. With one of ours, I've struggled to be at peace, more so in the younger years than now. I'm much more able to just leave that child in God's hands and everything. But one of the things he told me one day in prayer with him is trust me, not him.
Right. That's
trust
good.
me. And that really lifted a load off me, hearing him say that, like, I can trust you.
Yeah.
I actually can trust you in this situation, but maybe not the person.
Lisa Kay got a form of that, which was who loves him more, you or me, from the Lord. And she was able to put our child into the hands of the Lord because he loves them even more than she does. So that helped give her a lot of peace at that time.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things that I had to admit to God at one point back in the day was that I actually did not trust him. I didn't trust the Lord. Okay. Because salvation is a choice. And that's a scary thing when you're talking about your kids.
Sure.
I was that mom. So over love, over protect, over, and it's like, but what if you give them the choice to not choose you, which of course he does. So that was really hard to come to some of those realizations in my parenting. Like, no, they get to choose. And the Lord told me one day, he says, no, they get to walk out their journey just like you have.
Right.
And trust that I'm there with them, and I'm not going to leave them. That I'm there with them. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And the profound thing is that it's crazy to me that even when, you know, a kid is making decisions that maybe aren't the best decisions, they're still hearing God, and God still gets in there and helps, like, okay, now you're going to make this decision. And then all of a sudden the conviction hits. There were several times with me, I just woke up and I was like, I know that I have to do this thing. The rest of my life is not reflecting that I know God very well right now, but I know for a fact that God needs me to do this thing. The conviction hit, and it was like everything in me was like, nope, yep, this is the thing. And today's the day. Yeah. So God is... he has his methods.
I know a young man who was raised as a pastor's son, became a meth addict, and was in the middle of living in a meth house and just awful things, but he never had the peace of falling in his sin because the Lord's conviction was always on him. And other people recognized it as well and said, you're not welcome here because there's something about you. Yeah. So pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing when that guilt never fully goes away, even when you're doing things you shouldn't, because it's like Holy Spirit's holding on to your ponytail. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. FYI.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, we got our final ID break, and then we are going to come for Bible talk. If you guys are ready to talk about PG's sermon again this week, we are ready.
우리는 소음을 가져오고 있습니다. 진정해, 내가 바로 돌아올게. 더 많은 팟캐스트를 듣고 계십니다. 3명의 목사와 독단적인 한 여성이 당신에게 예수에 대해 말하고 있습니다.
I mean, Pastor Alex, first time I asked him, I was like, what does that say? He's like, I don't know, something about you. And I was like, dog, hold on. What does it say about me? Can I get a translation from somebody?
So in case you don't know, that's Korean.
Okay.
Okay. And then we like to say to all of our Korean listeners, Annyeong haseyo. So that's my way of saying hello to all of our Koreans out there.
How wonderful.
He knows because he's been to Korea.
Yes.
Oh, all right. That's wonderful.
I just gave you my entire Korean vocabulary right there.
All right. Well, this week, Pastor Gary talked about the covenant God made with Abraham and the soon-to-be established nation of Israel. Abraham, who was surprisingly and divinely picked from an entire world of pagan sun worshippers, becomes the father of our faith when God tells him to leave his family and follow him. This promise to Abraham and his descendants is the first promise God made to people and not just to one person, and shows the transition from individual encounter to a covenant to be with an entire group specifically picked by God.
Wow.
Wow.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, so I actually spent about 25 minutes on the phone with someone this morning who was really struggling, I believe, with this concept that Abraham didn't know anything about God.
Yeah.
And to see, the best I can tell, from Noah to Abraham, we don't have any no record of anyone being devoted to following God. So from Noah to Abraham, they completely abandoned the relationship with God. And so then God is able to pick Abraham, kind of like we joked around on Sunday morning from the phone book, right? Just kind of flipping through and let's pick this guy. That's the feel of this introduction to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. So we have a little bit of a ramp up to him at the end of chapter 11. We just find out basically that his dad Terah, or I don't know how you would actually say it, Terah, is living in Ur of the Chaldeans. Right. And then they make their way to Haran. And so somehow his dad is actually helping him get there without him even realizing it. So he makes like half of the journey and then decides to settle there. And the call of God then picks up in Genesis chapter 12 with Abraham, or Abram, as he makes the rest of the way down south to Israel. Yeah. Land of Canaan at that time.
Yeah, which is crazy because God shows all throughout the Bible that he can use non-believers to help accomplish his will. So the fact that Abraham's dad did not even know the Lord and participated in the will of God is pretty profound.
Yes. Yeah, and we have no understanding or any idea actually why he started making half that journey.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing.
Yeah. So you mentioned that Abraham's stumbling block, which I totally agree, is taking Lot with him when he was told to leave his entire family. How does this affect Abraham, and what does this look like in our lives?
Yeah. So this obedience that Abram shows is pretty remarkable. Leaving your family, leaving your business, leaving your religion, leaving all of that. It's a complete wiping the slate clean and getting started. Yeah. He obeys all of that, minus bringing along his snot-nosed nephew, Lot, who gets him into a lot of trouble. It's kind of remarkable for us that we are relationally connected to other people, and they do have an impact on our lives in a lot of ways. But when the Lord tells you directly to do something, it's so important for you to follow and listen all the way through. And then he does really become kind of that ball and chain, noose around your neck kind of a thing, where he's constantly having to be rescued or causing division or whatever it might be. But I believe, that God used this poor decision, in a powerful, remarkable way, which is also pointing us back to Romans chapter 8, right? That God can work out everything, even when we don't fully obey the way we need. So any thoughts or questions on any areas of your life where maybe you were told to do something and it was really hard to do?
Yes, most definitely. I've actually had to make some incredibly difficult moves at the Lord's leading. We stepped away from family for years. And actually, the healing process for me really didn't show a lot of fruit until I did.
Okay. There you go.
That made it incredibly challenging, because then you could see the fruit, but then you felt the pain of having stepped away from family.
Yeah.
And so, but I could say this, that God has been faithful through the whole thing. And because I've seen the fruit, like, how do you argue with that?
Right. Absolutely.
He knew what he was doing. He knew why. He understands it even more now than I do. But I know he was right. Yeah. I know he was right.
I'd like to, interject a little story from my past, and it's kind of gives a shout out to my mom. So we left Northern Michigan, moved to Ohio, went to Bible college for 3 years, and the most financially poor time of our entire lives, where we had a house with no furniture, no beds, nothing. And then after Bible college, my dad landed a job over in Indiana, Newcastle, Indiana. My mom felt like she had finally made it to heaven, right? She had a really nice house. They had a good job, income coming in ministry, super amazing friends and relationships. And then the Lord calls us to Northern Michigan to start Harbor Light. And it was a really emotionally difficult decision for my mom to walk away from all of her dreams finally coming true. They had just got this house and painted it, and it's all ready and fresh to move into. And I think she got to live there for 3 months, I think is what it was. And so it was a big step for her to move to Northern Michigan and start completely over. And but as you said, the fruit of it, of course, is Harbor Light and everything that got us doing here, because of my parents, and especially my mom, because not always, and I don't want to kind of pigeonhole anything, but men are generally more risk takers than ladies. Ladies, we find our love in security, and so it was tough for my mom, but I'm super proud of her for being willing to follow the Lord.
The crazy thing is that in my family, all the risk takers were women.
Okay.
So I've moved across the country 4 or 5 times. Was the one that kind of led the charge with my family leaving Texas. And I think it was because we had hit this point of desperation with God as a father, that it was, I will do whatever. I'm not going to strong arm my way through life anymore. None of it's working. So at this point, you say you're my dad, tell me what to do. And if it takes me 5 years to convince other people, that's what's going to happen. So I have been single. I'm not married, right? So my obedience was able to be immediate. Hers was different, because hers was, okay, this is what I'm hearing, this is what we need to do. And then you have to wait for a spouse to hear the same thing. So there's amazing testimony and fruit in that. But I can relate so much to what your mom went through, because I was listening to a sermon from Lisa Turkhurst. I guess it was just more like a Bible talk from Lisa Turkhurst yesterday. And she was talking about what her stumbling block, and really when she was talking about herself, I felt the same thing, is trying to have input on the outcome. Your mom had no idea the outcome.
Right.
But the fruit that she has seen, that Pastor Bill and her created, is astounding.
Absolutely.
And even in your life, to be able to be the head pastor in a church that's impacting an entire region and all over the world, if she would have had her hands on the outcome and wanted a specific outcome, you guys could have stayed in Indiana.
Sure.
And that is a testament of her not only obedience, but truly just saying, okay, if I never get the house, if I never get the farm, if I never get whatever, like your will be done, which is, man.
And that's kind of cool that you just said that, because my mom was sensing that the Lord was calling us here, as well as my dad, and they both heard separately, but then came together and said, yep, the Lord's doing that. And so then they were able to, be in that covenant relationship where we're in this together all the way. So it was great. And
that's what happened for them, is that they both were like, it took some time. Some people hear differently. Some people hear, before things happen. My mom always jokes that I hear things and she's like, typically she's right, but we still have to wait 6 months to see. And then other people hear and it's like, nope, this is what's going on. So it takes understanding gifts and how God speaks to people in order to unify, Yep,
that's great.
When we moved out here, we moved out on faith. Todd was an assistant principal in South Texas, and I had taught at a Christian school down there, and I actually came out 9 months before Todd and Hunter did.
Okay.
Because I was helping with his parents, specifically with his dad, but I'd also come out here to heal. God had said, you've got to separate.
Okay.
Not from my husband and children, but from family and everything. And I dug in really deep, and by the time June rolled around, we kept thinking Todd was going to get a job any day. So even after my father-in-law passed away, I stayed out here and kept thinking any day Todd's going to get a job and we're just going to get to live here in the apartment. The landlord even said we could. And when June rolled around, Todd still did not have a job.
Wow.
And we left everything and came out here and just waited on the Lord. And 2 weeks before they were supposed to move out here, Hunter and Todd packed up the house by himself. I married a superhero because he did, and my son. And 2 weeks before, Becca calls and says, Mom, have you ever thought about me moving to Michigan? Well, I had not said anything to her because I'd been hearing for quite a while about Becca moving to Michigan.
Okay.
But I wanted to make sure that I was not being that mom.
Right,
like
projecting it on.
She just right, exactly. So I was saying nothing. So I'm now to the opposite side of things where I hold on to things a little too long because I don't want to overstep or anything like that. And so they moved out like on June 3rd and she moved out on June 5th, and we were all in an apartment together. And we had no jobs.
Nope.
I was at Hobby Lobby. Becca had nothing. Todd had nothing. And I tell you what, we praised God. At night, we would pray, we would prophesy, and we would do praise and worship and warfare if the Lord led us to. And we did that all of June and all of July. And then my husband calls it August of 2023. When we hit August of 2023,
everything
breakthrough
broke.
started to happen.
Wow.
The crazy thing is that I had 2 weeks notice, and my poor best friend, she had told me, we were on a walk a week before I heard, and she said, I feel like I'm not supposed to be in Colorado anymore. And I looked at her and I was horrified. I said, Allison, we have callings that are supposed to be here. You can't give up on this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like we haven't seen any of the things that God promised. What are you doing? Like, why would we leave now? Like, what if things just start happening? And that conversation led me to questioning, am I staying somewhere longer than I'm supposed to? So with 2 weeks notice, I sold everything I owned, put in my Jeep, my tiny little Jeep Compass, I had to sell in a tragedy. My KitchenAid mixer.
Oh.
I had to sell it. And I was so sad.
What color was it?
Red. It was red, but I told God I want a yellow one.
Okay.
So
we're believing in faith.
We're believing in faith for a butter yellow KitchenAid mixer. So I move out here and I made like $1,000 on selling everything that I owned. And I got out here with like $200 left to spare. And I get in, I'm just dazed. You never could have told me. Number one, I'd leave Texas. You never could have told me. Number two, I'd be Yankee, you know.
Anybody outside of Texas.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
That's what it means.
And so 2 days after I move here, I'm walking in the parking lot, and this girl comes out of her apartment with golf clubs. And I said, hey, do you want to be friends? Like, I golf, you golf. She was like, no, but I'll hire you at my golf club that I work at. And then, so she hired me on the spot the next day. And then that's the job that I took managing at Harbor Point when she left.
Sure.
So God got me a job within 2 days.
Wow.
And my father, with a master's degree, went and worked at Hobby Lobby with my mom.
Wow.
That's very humbling for both of us.
That's okay, though.
Yep.
So
We did it.
getting back on track, PG, sorry for side railing here.
Nope, it's all good.
It says that Abraham will be given land, made into a great nation, will be famous and bless others. But it also says that we're heirs to these covenants and the promises that God made. So with all of these big promises, which of these ones, like, do we take as promises for us, and which ones were just, you know, Abraham?
Well, that's an excellent question, because we have the two basic streams of Abraham's covenant. One is his biological descendants, and then the other, of course, is his spiritual descendants. And so I'm a firm believer that we have access to these same covenantal promises in a spiritual way. Okay, so we are going to be blessed to be a blessing. We will have heirs as or descendants as spiritual children are coming out of us, and that the promised land, of course, is not just heaven, but it's going to be this earth again during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. So, so I'm in that particular wave that we don't get to march over to Israel and say, "Well, God, this is my piece of land," right? Because we're the spiritual heirs to the promises.
Yeah. Yep. And so one of the things that really I still wrestle with, just like side tangenting off of this, is that Abraham had to go back and remind God of some of the promises that he gave.
Right.
I think we've all experienced, hey, you said this, like, did I miss something? Did I not do something? Like, where are we at with this whole promise thing? Because a lot of his promises depended on him having a physical heir as well.
Yes.
So why does God do this when we know that he doesn't forget?
Well, I think that it's important because it settles it down inside of us and it becomes ours, right? When everything is handed to you, we all know children who have everything handed to them, and they just have they are so ungrateful even when giant blessings come their way. And I think, for us, even as, children of the Lord, when we have everything handed to us, we become ungrateful. And the Bible actually says sometimes we become spiritually dull and indifferent, right? And so sometimes the Lord lets it be a challenge so that we have to grab it and own it and appreciate it, and we not understand the value behind it and what it took for that to be able to take place. So I think the Lord, in his infinite wisdom and in his fatherly approach to us, recognizing that he is helping us make it our own when we have to fight for it, when we got skin in the game, right? We try our best with our own children. There's a lot of parents out there who want to send their children off to higher education. I think it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing, but I don't believe that you should pay the entire way. I think they should have skin in the game. Yeah. They should have some blood, sweat, and tears connected to whatever it is you give them, right?
That's
so
true.
We were able to, with some blessings of some other family members, give our children a car on their 16th birthday, right?
Wow.
Crazy. I didn't believe that we'd ever be able to do that. But they had to pay their own insurance and they had to pay their own gas, right? So I'm going to give you this incredible gift, but you can't drive it unless you're involved in that. So I think that helps all of us appreciate more what God does for us. So I believe that's kind of the reason behind it.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that these exact same promises were dependent on the Amorites, and even some of our promises are dependent on others.
That was a lot of fun to kind of open up that can and just kind of let it rest there.
Yeah.
That is where I think we can become very the word is, kind of like egocentric, we have a myopic view of like everything. We're the center of the whole universe. Well, that's not necessarily the case. This verse kind of opens up the idea that what God's doing in my life might be hinged on something else that's happened way over here. I didn't even know these people. Right. And so for God to be able to say, I'm going to give you this land, and this is a giant problem that we have in the world today, right? I'm going to give you this land that's occupied by other people. Now, they're not an organized nation or anything like that. They're tribal people, but he's giving them land that they don't own it, but God owns it, but they think they own it, right? And now God's going to give it to a different people. Well, it was because when their sin had kind of gone full flowering, fruitful sin, then God was able to say, I've had enough. You've completely rejected me. And so now we're going to wipe you out, and we're going to move in this group of people that have a calling on their life to be my people.
Yeah.
See, that we don't realize that God was doing, he's playing that 3-4 dimensional chess, and to recognize that it wasn't the perfect timing yet because they hadn't fully let their sin develop. So then how do we experience that? Our walk with Jesus might be hinged on what God is doing in somebody else's life, and we don't even realize the crossover. So it looks like you had something to share.
Well, it's because she was staring at me. That's my healing walk.
Okay.
There have been times where I'm like, Lord, why is this not moving faster? I'm hearing your voice, I'm obeying your whatever. And he's told me before, this is not all about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all about you.
Sure.
So when I'm digging into some really deep prayers and I'm doing work on our family line, it's not all about me.
Right.
So it's almost felt like in my healing walk, there were some times where I was almost on pause for a short season. I have no idea what he was doing.
Right.
But I know that it's not all about me.
Yeah.
And I have to stop thinking that it is, because then when I focus on me, thinking it's all about me, this walk with him, then if something goes right, it was because I did it right. But if something seems to go wrong, it's all my fault. And that's where the enemy hits me.
Wow, it's both.
It's not moving right now, and it is all your fault. And I have to get alone with the Lord, and the Lord will say, no, it's not. I'm still in this working. Can you please stand on faith with me that I'm still working on your behalf right now? And it's like, yes, Lord, I can do that. I'll stand in faith.
I think, Tamara, that you're speaking some words to people who are listening today to realize that both of those things can happen when we make it about ourselves.
Yep.
Yes.
We start blaming God, or we start taking credit.
Yes.
And to realize that the Lord is to be trusted. And we've repeated this multiple times in this series, and we've repeated it around our house all the time, which is God always does the right thing. He always does it the right way, and he always does it at the right time. Yeah. Right. And when you can really grab a hold of that truth, then all of a sudden your level of trusting when you don't see the evidence grows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, great testimony.
And
Thank
what
you.
seems, because I hate hearing that. I'm being real transparent right now, that he's never late. Because there are so many times I'm like, where are you right now?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's, I'm going around the mountain again. And so there's been another delay.
Or somebody else is going around the mountain.
Or somebody else is going around the mountain, and you
it's
get
not
to wait
yeah.
on them.
Right. That was really fun. An aspect that I was able to bring out on Sunday, of course, is we have this man who's been waiting 25 years, for a child, for his heir. And then in the actual covenant itself, he has to wait the entire day for God to show up on the event that's going to seal the deal, right? That was kind of fun. There was like double dose of waiting, and how important it is for us to wait on the Lord and whatever he has promised us, that he is going to do it at the right time. It's always perfect timing.
And that August of 2023, how Hunter got into Harbor Light, how they got their house, how my mom got her job, how my dad got his job. It's just like mind-boggling. Just mind-boggling that all of a sudden you start looking at all the pieces of the things that had to start moving significantly more ahead of time. Like when another student has to choose not to re-up at Harbor Light for like another student to be able to come in. Sure. God's having to work in this student's life, or this family's life, to be able to allow for more room. So you're standing on faith that your kid's going to go to get good, private education, but you got to let him escort somebody out first, which is profound. But
yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But that was a lot of fun on Sunday to be able to kind of bring that out and open up that little can without actually being able to go all the way there like we have just this afternoon here. So I'm excited about what God is doing in this series. I didn't really picture it as big as it is. Sometimes I'll find a series idea, and then I'm going to put it on the calendar, and I'm going to lay it all, as far as what subject I'm going to cover it. And then that's as far as it goes for a long time until I'm able to dig in. And sometimes I don't get to dig in until, 3-4 days before I actually get to speak. And then you're like, oh gosh, you are so good, God. This is so great. So, that's what's happening in this particular series.
Yeah.
So it's really great.
So who's next?
Well, it's supposed to be David, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
So, there's actually between 7 and 8, depending on how you read it, 7 or 8 major covenants that God makes with people in the Bible, but I only have 5 weeks to cover that. So I have to pick and choose kind of what I'm doing. So I'm not actually sure at the moment.
So you'll have to come on Sunday to find out who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what we're talking about.
I'm leaning towards David, and that's why I did the trivia question on David, and the ark of the blank, is because I'm kind of leaning in that direction.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, because the covenants actually are that thread that is weaving this whole story together. So it might be the best next logical step would be to go to David. We'll see. It's gonna be great. I know that as long as I've been here, which I got here officially December of, when did I switch over? 2023. Yeah.
Then around January, and we didn't come till later in the spring.
Yeah, and I did growth track my first week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm becoming a member. I'm in it. All right, this is it. We're good. But it has seemed like every Sunday, regardless of who's preaching, there's something that's incredibly timely. And I think that's a testament to how much everybody on staff actually listens to God. Yeah. So I know that whatever God ends up having you talk about is going to be timely, if not for everybody, for somebody. And that's all that matters. This is something that, it's important to me, probably not important to other people, but after giving more than 1,000 sermons and only having to repeat less than a handful. Absolutely. It's fun because I have to be tuned in every week. I just can't pull something out of the archive and preach on it. I want every week that you show up, that you're getting a word from the Lord. Yep. Directly deposited into your heart. So that helps make it fun. And you can tell from the audience when you get on a roll. Yeah. Like you can tell when something hits you, your eyebrows get bigger, all of a sudden your hands come out. And I'm like, oh, he been hit. We're about to get something. I'm like, come on, Gary, get it to me. Yeah. And it happens almost every week in the moment, right? And it's just always a lot of fun for me. And you apologize for your tangents, but sometimes the tangent is the exact thing that people needed. Yeah. That was a crazy story this last week. I didn't even plan about telling the story. Your dad? It just happened. Yeah. That was hilarious. We talk about you at home. Okay. And even in the car. All good things. I'm sure, all good things. Totally. Sure. Because Todd and I will be in the car. We're like, he has this anointing, like a father anointing for your, for the people you pastor over and everything. Sure. But not just a shepherd's. I want to say a father anointing because you have, because of the Lord's given you this ability to speak out what he asked you to speak out. And you call it out. You call it out, but it's done in such love that it can be received. Yeah. Yep. And it can be digested. Right. And so when I got out here and was needing to heal and was digging in and doing my deep work with the Lord and everything, when we got here, I wanted to hide. I just needed to hide. I just needed to disconnect. And then I felt the Lord prompting me a little bit. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I said, you would pretty much have to go straight to Gary yourself and tell him. And then it wasn't long until you had a dream, and then you said something in service, and I was straight up called out, and I was like, dang it. He looked right, say that. He looked right at you. I was like, no way. I'm watching this live from Alabama, like, I knew it. Did it. I was just like, dang it. He heard me. I was talking to him. I don't know why I was thinking he wasn't going to do something about it, and he did. And so, what's fun is, Abraham kind of gets randomly selected, right? In those moments, I'm telling you, it's the Lord. It's not me at all. No. Right? I'm just, the Lord is moving. I knew. Yeah. It was kind of like, that is so not Gary. That is so the Lord calling me out publicly. Right. Yeah. It is hilarious when stuff like that happens. Yep. And it's like you just use somebody else. Like, I was telling Chelsea the other day, I was like, how Paige is a man of few words, and then when he does talk, you have to listen? She was like, yeah. And I was like, he told me something the other day. Now I got to do something about it. Exactly. It's like, that's what happens when you're in good community. Is like, people are actually listening. So when Joe Lucier talks to me, I'm like, hold on. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Picking up my... Anyway, well, this was a good week. Yes, it was. How are we doing on our time? We are early. Okay. You're going to be able to get to your meeting if you want, unless you want to keep talking. I'd like to keep talking just a little bit if I can. Absolutely. All right. So let's go over the most important, or the kind of the key nugget in this chapter 15, verse 6. Right? Do you remember that one? Is it in my notes at the bottom? I'm going to go ahead and read it to you right now. And Abram believed
the Lord, and the Lord counted it to him righteous because of his faith. You know, that one passage, as we talked about on Sunday, is quoted 4 different times, 3 by the Apostle Paul in one chapter of Romans, but 4 different times, just signifying how important this concept that we really don't do anything to receive our salvation other than to accept what's been handed to us. And the moment that that idea falls, the whole church and everything that we believe begins to crumble in. It can't stand. There's a quote from Charles Spurgeon. It can't stand 1 hour on its own. We have to be completely dependent in faith on God and what he has done. And I think that was a big, obviously, key point for Sunday morning. And it's key for us to realize that we have been called not by works, but completely by faith. And then we talked about a little bit in one of the services, Philippians 2:12, right? But then let's show the evidence of our salvation by how we live for the Lord. So we get saved completely on the merits of God and not on our own. But then after salvation, then we have to kick in and get involved in working out our salvation is another way to be able to say that. But this one phrase is really important because there are even Christian faiths today that are based on works. And so it's important for us. And then, of course, that takes us to Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. God saved you by his grace when you believed. And wasn't it also, not behaved. I threw that one in there. It was kind of fun.
That was good.
So the this idea that belief and righteous are the first 2 times those words are used in the Bible. And you guys know from your studies that the first time something is mentioned in the Bible, take special note, study a little extra, see how it's connected, because it usually has super foundational pieces for us. So here's this foundational verse, foundational idea that transcends all the way to the end of the Bible.
Yeah, so like I said, when you talk, it's just like wham. But I was, trying to figure out what I was supposed to pray or talk about, I guess, on the next episode for my little YouTube thing. And God said, back in the day because we grew up Church of Christ, nothing against that denomination, but man, you got a checklist the second you were born. And I had my head wrapped around God in a completely different way. And when God had me start rereading the Old Testament, I was like in knots. I did not want to read about how scary and angry and all this kind of stuff was. But instead of just reading it for myself, I asked Holy Spirit to help me. And when I read it, I saw grace over and over and over again. Like you said, restraint, the number of times he held restraint. And even just this morning, we were sitting, she was eating breakfast, or she was doing something, and I was sitting next to her. And I said, Mom, it says here that Moses, was it in Kings, 2 Kings? Or it might have been Joshua, that one of the bronze idols that Moses had made was in 2 Kings, was needing to be destroyed by Hoshea. That people had still been burning incense to them. Yet when I was reading Judges a couple of days ago, it was talking about how Moses was a man that God counted as righteous, and that's restraint even there. That in the Old Testament, people say that Old Testament God is different. No, he used incredibly broken people, and by his grace and through the faith that they had in him, he was able to work through people who were actively disobeying him, and he still counted them as righteous. It's when you read the Old Testament again, man, God has always been the same. You see Jesus through the whole thing because Jesus is the Father. Like he is just another representative. It's crazy.
Yeah, so let's talk about this last thought. We have a few more minutes here. From Genesis chapter 15, it says, the Lord told Abram, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So Abram presented all of these things to him and killed them. And he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves side by side. And we talked about that, of course, from the beginning of the series. It was really fun to see all of this now playing out. He did not, however, cut the birds in half. Some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. So kind of reflecting back on some of the stories that you guys have told here today, how many times do we get a promise and then some vulture's going to swoop down and try to steal it away? Any thoughts or comments on that?
This is an insane story. Are you going to tell it?
Which one?
The house.
Oh, yeah.
That was crazy.
Okay, so the house, Todd and I really didn't look for very long. He got his job and we immediately started looking for a house back in August of 2023. And we were so discouraged very quickly because the market was very different than South Texas.
Sure.
And so we were going into $300,000 homes that looked horrible.
Yeah.
That needed to be flipped so bad. And our realtor, who's an amazing Christian, amazing guy, was like, yeah, they just need 60,000 and new windows and a new roof and this. And I'm like, who's got that kind of money? Oh my goodness.
I've watched lots of that, Tim and Joanne stuff from South Texas. But
all you need is $300,000 cash to fix it up. That's all you need.
That's all you need. And we almost thought about, Todd was like, maybe we just need to stay living in the apartment. And I'm like, Todd, I'm not going to wait for the market. The market's not going to change. And we had seen this one house. And so
ugly in photos, by the way.
Yeah, the other ones were lion pictures.
Okay.
Oh man, made me mad. I can get fired up at times, and that was one of the things that got me fired up for sure. You can ask my realtor.
Okay.
But
so when you say lion, you mean lying?
Yeah.
Okay.
My
Got a little Texas coming out there. I'm like, a lion picture. What's a lion picture?
Lying.
Lion and the lamb pictures.
You're
okay.
a lion.
The lion pictures. Very good.
Yes. Okay. So we almost canceled the appointment to go see the house. We go see it, and Todd said he walked in. He was like, I saw your face, Tamara, and I knew that was your house. And it was really interesting because, well, let me get to the main part of it. We ended up saying yes that day, actually went home and prayed about it. Todd and I, in our own heads, we had a number in our head and we didn't tell each other.
Okay.
And after the haggling and stuff, that was the number we looked at each other. That was the number I heard. He was like, that's the number I heard. I'm like, okay, well, we're good. So we're moving forward, and this is still kind of nervous about it. It's still expensive out here.
Sure.
And next thing we know, we find out that the owners of the house have changed their minds.
Oh.
And Todd comes home and tells us they don't want to sell their house anymore. But we already had money on it and everything. We'd already been paid for the inspection. We'd already put money in on it and everything. Well, me and Becca and Hunter were like, oh my gosh, we feel so bad. We're going to take these people's home from them. Maybe we need to back down. Todd's like, well, I'm good. We're going to keep moving forward, And so I'm really wrestling with this. And I'm in a slight panic, and I'm trying to calm myself down because it's like, what do I do? What's right here? And the Lord said, the enemy cannot take this blessing from you, but you can give it up. And I froze. And I said what I heard, and we all got quiet.
We had been worshiping for 45 minutes at that point,
praying for God to show us.
And she just like puts her head in her hands and she's crying, and I'm like, oh, she heard something. So she sits her head up and she says that, and when she said that, all of a sudden, me and Hunter snapped straight out of compassion, and we were like, no, this is the land that God wants us on. This is the home that we've been waiting for and praying for, just like you said. Like who has to move out so that the other people can move in? Yeah. What was going on that God was like, nope, you're going to get this other house, which they did get another house in the area, and they're doing great, which is a blessing also for them.
Sure. And we prayed for them. We started praying for them that the Lord would bless them richly.
Yeah. Which, as far as we know, he has, and they've, the wife said that she worked through her emotions of losing the house and is happy with the new house, which is amazing. We're so thankful for that. But that night, we had to remember that when God gives us something, it can be at the expense of somebody else, but not in the same way that we think it's the expense. It is still absolutely something ordained by God, even if it hurts just a little bit. Like us walking away from our family for several years, they didn't understand, but it was obedience to God. And even as we're walking into a season of being able to start communication with them again, they still question why. And I'm like, listen, the fruit of this, the obedience that we've had to have, but the fruit of it is proof. You have to, we're not going to tell you we're sorry that we did it. We're going to tell you we're sorry that it hurt you. But we absolutely had to put distance there. And everything that God's done with Hunter, with me, with Mom, with Dad, with the home, with the cars, with the truck, with all of that is direct fruit of obedience.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Well, thank you guys for sharing your story there. That's good. I do believe that a part of what's happening in our modern day world in Israel, that the vultures are swooping in, trying to steal away. And so we're going to continue to see that happen, of course, all the way to the end of the book of Revelation. But we have hope in the Lord and what he's going to do. So
we do.
That's awesome. Well,
all right.
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And a good job to Rebecca for taking the helm and making sure it all happens. And so We will see you next week here on More Podcasts.
Talk to you later.
We want you to know, find, discover, change with us. More podcast ending transmission now.